All right, welcome back to another episode of the Karter Cast. I'm your host, Karter Baughan. With me as always, Connor. It's the NBA episode. It's NBA in January. We got Chet versus Wemby last night. Like I said, I've said it the last 2 weeks, things are looking bleak in the NBA right now. Can we just get All-Star break over with so things can turn for the better?
Well, let's look at the glass half full, Carter. Trade deadline's coming up. All-Stars are going to be announced tonight. Like, you know,
we're Hornets fans. We're Hornets fans. There's no such thing as a glass half full.
That is true. It's more just like, hey, how much is in the glass right now? Just dump it out. Like, oh, yeah, traded Terry Rozier for a bag of chips.
Smash the glass. Yeah, smash the glass. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Today's show, we're going to talk about the Doc Rivers, Griffin coaching, how insane that was. We'll get into the Rozier Siakam trade and talk about some other stuff as well. But before we get into that, we are brought to you by SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app today. Go on SeatGeek.com to get your next tickets. You're going to a Hornets game. God bless you if you're going to a Hornets game. But if you're going to a Jazz game, BYU, wherever you're going, sporting event, concert, whatever it may be, go to SeatGeek. Use promo code KarterCast, KarterKast. Use the promo code SeatGeek. It's right here, right below. You're watching on YouTube. You're watching on Spotify. Right here. Use promo code KarterCast at SeatGeek for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Download the app today in the App Store, Android, Google, whatever phone you have. Download SeatGeek. Go online. Go to a game today. Use promo code KarterCast. But let's get into today's episode. Let's talk about the coaching stuff. Let's talk about what a weird notification to get. Now, I'm blocked by Woj, as many of us know. So Connor sent me the text when he was like, holy crap, what's going on? It was a screenshot of Woj's tweet because I can't see Woj's tweets. And Adrian Griffin fired from the Bucks. And you're like, they're what, 30-13?
I think 31-13 was the record.
31-13, 70% win percentage. What? Talk to me. Why would they do this? Why would you do this? Is this Dwayne Casey 2.0?
I don't think so. I think to look at, well, maybe in a sense, but I think if you really want to dive into this, it's more of like ownership in the front office and the GM looked in the mirror, looked at the roster construction, looked at the coaching staff and said, as currently built, this is not a championship roster. And by trading for Damian Lillard in the offseason, by trading all those assets, trading away Drew Holiday, getting rid of Grayson Allen, all that stuff, they went all in for a championship. It is championship or bust for this Milwaukee Bucks team. And yeah, they had a nice record, 31-13. It was great. But if you dive into some of the numbers, the last 10 games, they're 25th in defensive efficiency rating, which is pretty terrible for a team that's trying to win a championship. I mean, I don't have the exact historical data, but usually teams are in the top 10 as far as like these defensive ratings if they want to win a title. Like when the Bucks won it a few years ago, I think they were 8th or 6th. And there was just so many instances of just like a little bit of a red flag where, oh, Terry Stotts, before the season even starts, something blows up, him and Adrian Griffin get in an argument, and Terry Stotts, who's supposed to be there for Dame, for the star players, who's really good with the X's and O's, all of a sudden he quits. He's gone. That whole situation. Then there was, 4 or 5 games into the season whenever the Milwaukee Bucks had a player meeting and they were like, we need to go back to the defense we were running with Coach Bud, the defense that won us the championship. We don't need Brook Lopez double teaming people in the perimeter and, chasing guards around screens. We need him drop coverage every time. So they went back to that. There's just been so many red flags to where I think ownership was like, we have a good record and there's still a chance for us to get a high seed in the playoffs this year, but we need to make a move to ensure that we have a chance to win a title. And I think that's why they dismissed Adrian Griffin. I think he still has a chance to be a good coach in this league, but for this Milwaukee Bucks roster, it wasn't the right fit. And kudos to them for deciding to do that now, mid-season, even with a great record like that, instead of waiting until the offseason. Because they didn't want to waste this year. Who knows how much Giannis is going to want to be there in a couple of years? What's the timeline on him? How good is Dame going to be in 3 years? There's no time to waste with a roster like this. So I think it was a good move. I think it was the right move, and I think it was justified.
It's crazy. Like, obviously, it had to have been justified behind the scenes. What this move really tells you is the stars run the show. The stars are running the show the whole way. It's not even the owners. I mean, the owners definitely have the final say, but that's like, what, 5%? 95% of what goes on is just decided by the players now.
Well, yeah, it's what can we do to keep Giannis happy? What can we do to keep Giannis in Milwaukee and not demand a trade? Because it used to be, oh, we signed this guy to an extension, we're good, he's locked up. That doesn't matter anymore. A guy could sign a 4-year extension like Dame did, and all of a sudden he's like, well, I want to go to this one specific team, or I want to get traded now. But Dame, you just signed an extension. It doesn't matter. So there's no guarantee that your star players will want to stay with your team and your franchise, especially in a small market like Milwaukee. Because what's to say Giannis doesn't get allured by LA or Miami or New York, and it's just like, oh, maybe that would be better for me. Maybe they would let me make some more decisions.
The NBA is fully turned into soccer now. It's soccer 2.0. For people that don't watch soccer, it basically boils down to this. For one, let's talk about the ownership coaching side. Chelsea, very famous club, Chelsea. Chelsea would always fire their coaches. Anytime they're doing fairly bad, they could have won the Champions League last season. I don't care. After 8 games, you're done. You're not winning us enough games. You're out of here. During the Roman Abramovich era. And it just continued. They had like 400 coaches. They still won some games. They have a bunch of money. They had a bunch of talent. They have some of the greatest players that have ever played soccer on their team. But they just funnel through coaches. It doesn't matter. You're not doing it. 10 games in, you're done. Get another guy in. You're not top. You're not in top 4 right now. We're 7th in the league. You're done. We're seeing a little more patience now with the American owners than previously. But this is what happens. Soccer. It's cutthroat. You're like, hey, you're not a championship team. We have talent. We put a lot of money in. You're gone. And also, the other thing with soccer is, like you mentioned with the contracts don't matter anymore. The only thing that matters with a contract is your salary cap hit. But the commitment for a player to be there, that's dead. That is long dead. If a soccer player signs a 5-year contract, that means nothing. That means absolutely nothing, because in 6 months when the transfer window comes around, Real Madrid comes knocking at your door and you're like, I'm from South America. Real Madrid's always been my dream to go play there. I don't want to live in, rainy Manchester right now. Maybe I want to go play for Real Madrid and live in nice warm weather in Spain and speak Spanish, not have to speak English. Like, that's how the NBA is. You're Giannis. You're like, it's cold, it's freezing. I'm a big fish in a little pond in Milwaukee, but, man, L.A., New York, Miami, doesn't sound bad. Doesn't sound bad. And you just have to keep these guys happy. It's almost impossible, but you have to do it.
It's like, I want to go live on the coast, or I want to go live in South Beach. It's like, it's a lot better than Milwaukee where it's 20 degrees all the time. Yep. But I think, honestly, Carter, I think we're going to see more of this. Stars.
Yeah. James Harden is the poster child.
Well, yeah, as stars get more and more power and it's more player empowerment, which is good to a certain extent, but all of a sudden it's going to be like, how do we prioritize keeping this guy happy? And if that means we look ourselves in the mirror and say, we're not going to win a title this year, even though we have a great record, you got to fire the coach, you got to trade a player, do something. I think we're going to see more unprecedented, drastic moves like this. Because if you would have told me 5 years ago there's a team that's 31-13 and they're going to fire their coach midseason, I'd be like, what's going on? Is there a scandal? Did he get caught doing something? Did he get in an argument with one of the players, with an owner? Whatever that may be. I think this is going to become more of the norm, to where it's like, we really don't see ourselves beating Boston in the second round or getting past Embiid in Philadelphia as currently constructed. So we're not going to waste a year. We're not going to waste a year and go lose in the second round or get swept in the conference finals and then deal with it in the offseason. We're going to maximize our time with these guys, because we don't know how much time there is until Giannis demands a trade, or until Dame gets to that certain age point where he falls off and has that drastic career drop-off that is coming for a guy like him. I like what they did as far as they're not wasting any time, and this is a year where the East isn't wide open, but there's not Boston's awesome, but some of their late game stuff, they're a beatable team. So this is one of the years where Milwaukee could make a run in the playoffs, and kudos to them for making that tough decision, like, okay, we got to do something.
It really seems like it should be Boston and Milwaukee sleepwalking to the Eastern Conference Finals.
It does, but then
one of them is going to have a little 7-game series with the Miami Heat, and then that's going to be but like, really, you think about the Bucks and Celtics versus the Cavs, who you taking? Bucks or Celtics versus the Knicks, who you taking? Bucks Celtics versus the Sixers, who you taking?
That'd be a little bit closer, but I'm still taking Milwaukee or Boston to beat Philadelphia as of right now.
But like, you're going against that same teams, in a 7-game series. I don't think it'd be close in any of those series, to be honest, except Miami, because Miami's weird.
Miami always has some special juju. Now they got Rozier. We'll get into that later.
Heat culture, baby. Heat culture.
Yeah, heat culture. Yeah, I mean, Terry Rozier, heat culture guy. But I don't know. And as far as Doc Rivers goes, this is kind of what I wanted to transition into. I think from a perspective of he handles big names well, then it's a good hire. Like, he's a respected coach. People know his name. He has a long history in the league. He has a championship with the Celtics. Does have a history of playoff flubs, but he does have, some pedigree as a coach. I think this was the right hire. for them. If they're going to fire Adrian Griffin mid-season, where else are you going to go? It's either you hire Doc or you go call into Coach Budenholzer and say, we will double your salary if you just come back, please. And they weren't going to do that. They weren't going to walk that back.
Steve Clifford.
Borrego off the New Orleans
James
bench.
Borrego.
I don't know. Do you think it was the right move going for Doc Rivers? Because mid-season, your options are so limited. It's not like there's a wide-open coaching pool like the NFL right now in the offseason.
I feel like Doc Rivers was the little sass meme when the Bucks are calling him like, wait, you want me to coach? You want me?
Yeah. It's like, wait, Doc, you just got done calling the ESPN game, the next game. It's like, we want you to come coach our team.
You just got done with a 20-minute segment on Bill Simmons' podcast, but, oh, you want to go coach the Bucks now and pay me $40 million? Oh, all right. I don't know, Mom.
What do you think the reasoning behind this is? Do you think it's just because he's a competitive guy? Do you think it's because maybe he wants to obviously win another championship, but why wouldn't you wait till the offseason to see if there's a more lucrative job? Or maybe there's not one.
I don't think there's a better job. I don't think you get a much better job. You already walk into a great situation with Lillard, Middleton, Giannis. Like, you don't have to deal with any front office bull crap. It's already set up for you. You also got to skip the first half of the season. You're like, I only have to coach half the season. Like, this is pretty sweet.
Nice.
And then
they're already in second in the conference, and you're walking into a 2 seed.
Yeah, you're walking into a 2 seed. You're in the much easier conference, and you have arguably the top 3 best player in the league. You can arguably say 1 on certain nights, and you have Dame Lillard who can go off anytime. It's a perfect situation. You're like, I kind of have to do this. Like, this is too good to be true. I would be an idiot to pass this up if you're Doc Rivers. But I think the reason they wanted Doc Rivers was you mentioned it. He works well with big names. Do I think he's a great coach? Absolutely not. Those Clippers teams should have done a lot better than they did. The Sixers teams, maybe. I never thought the Sixers teams were that great, so to say. I think
that 1 year with Jimmy Butler was the year.
Yeah, the 1 year with Jimmy Butler, you're right. But like the recent years, you're like, I never felt like they were ever actually going to the finals. It always felt like that 5-10% chance, like maybe cards fall their way. You never know. But
yeah,
this team is a finals team. He's walking into. This is like, you make the finals, or else this is a very bad year. Things could blow up if you don't. So,
yeah,
I don't hate the hire. Weirdly, I'm not a Doc Rivers guy, but I don't hate the hire for some reason.
This situation there's like a flammable caution sign on it. Like, this does have the potential to blow up. Like, this could blow up in everybody's face, and nothing goes well, and Giannis demands a trade. But if you're a Bucks fan, you're slowly starting to talk yourself into it. You're like, oh, those years in LA, like Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, they didn't really like each other. That wasn't really Doc's fault. And then you start talking about the Philly years, and it's like, well, Harden choked in the playoffs, and Harden only showed up for a few games out of this series, and yada, yada, yada. You're trying to talk yourself into it not being Doc Rivers' fault. And then when Milwaukee loses to Boston in 6 games, the blame's instantly going to Doc Rivers. And it's going to say, oh, wow, like Doc in the playoffs again, or if they get a 2-1 lead, it's like Doc blew another playoff lead or lost another game 7. I don't know, Carter. I think the hire is the right one if you're going to make a move mid-season, but I don't see Doc Rivers being the reason this team gets pushed over the top against Boston. I'm still taking Boston in an Eastern Conference Finals.
I would too, but I think you mentioned it. I am worried about Boston late game situations.
Yeah,
because it
turns into a lot of ISO ball.
Well, it's all ISO ball. To be honest, a lot of their offense is sneaky ISO ball-y. Like, it's not – the ball's not zooming around the court, so to speak, but it really falls apart at the end of games. The second that clock hits 1 minute left and it's a close game, it is Tatum dance around. Tatum weirdly avoids contact at the end of games. I don't know what that's all about, but –
yeah, settles for more jumpers.
Yeah, I guess that's more for a different podcast. Yeah, those fadeaway turnarounds. It's like, what do you do? Go into the defender.
Yeah, you're 6'9".
You can dunk on any of these players. Like, you're so
you will get the call.
You have such a good handle. Go to the paint. But whatever, I would be pissed. That would annoy me so much if I was a Celtics fan. But with the Bucks, like I said, I think I like the Doc Rivers hire because, like you said, like if it was that big of a problem and the players were like, hey, I'm not going to get up and play for this guy, like something's got to change, and you made that move, like I don't know if you can hit better than Doc Rivers halfway through the season.
I agree. For a mid-season hire, this is the right move for them. It is. Now, if it was the offseason and they were like wide open coaching pool, anybody you want, or big name coach here and there, then I guess. I guess the Doc Rivers working with the big name stars would be the selling point. And also, if you're Doc Rivers, you're coming in, it can't be any worse. These guys did not like Adrian Griffin as a coach, so you
No,
can't
you
come
saw-
in with any worse. They're just
saw
happy
them
there's
night
somebody
one.
different in there.
Yeah, you saw them night one. They're all dancing in warm-ups. They're like, let's go. Like, it's a much better situation. I did see a tweet. Someone was tweeting out. They were like, "Yeah, if Quinn Snyder would have stayed on that beach in Costa Rica, he'd be coaching the Bucks to a finals right now."
That's so true. Instead of trying to trade DeJounte Murray right now.
Yeah, instead they're like, "Oh my gosh, Atlanta's almost just as big of a disaster as Charlotte."
Yeah, that whole rest of the division besides the Heat's just Orlando too.
People are idiots if they would have taken the Hawks over win total this season. Terry Rozier got traded. He's no longer a Hornet. No more Scary Terry in Charlotte. Kind of sad.
It is sad because I was saying on social media, I was telling all you guys, he was our most consistent player in Charlotte.
Oh, yeah.
He was the most consistent player, night in, night out. Never any long-term nagging injuries where you didn't know what was going on, like a Cody Martin or a LaMelo or a Mark Williams. None of that.
I have something that may have to get cut out, and I want to get this take across, but I think we'll have to cut it out.
All right, hit me.
Are you at all surprised he was the only guy on the team basically to not get arrested? Or have a scandal around him? I mean, he really didn't. He's pretty clean.
The only thing that he ever had was like his Twitter likes. Like he was horny on Twitter. That was it.
Yeah, he was just super horny on Twitter. Like, he had the Bin Laden tweet, which was hilarious, and then, like, yeah.
If you look up and down the Charlotte Hornets roster, it's a little surprising.
He's kind of the coach's example in this locker room. Like, hey, like, you didn't get in trouble with the law. You didn't get into weird stuff with baby mamas that we know about. Like, you didn't, he was like, I like crazy stuff on Twitter. Sue me. Right?
Yeah, well, you know what? Terry Rozier, veteran in that locker room.
Veteran in that locker room. You could see the players were upset.
They actually were, yeah. Everybody was posting about him, and the Hornets media team gave a tribute. It does suck, though, just going off what I was saying. He was the most consistent guy, night in, night out. Big fourth quarter moments. I mean, he could have a terrible shooting game. He could be 3 for 15. But when there's 2 minutes left, I trust him to make a shot. I trust him to make a play. 1,000%. I mean, at the end of my gosh, over COVID when they played the Warriors and he hit that fadeaway 3 in the corner, we were in Orlando together.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We were watching on the laptop.
What about the Kings game like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, just every big shot, it seemed like. He was just cashing in every single one. I don't know. I'm going to miss him. Just before we even dive into the trade details, it's going to suck not to have him in Charlotte. It does make sense because his timeline was a little bit ahead of, like, the Hornets are not ready to win anytime soon. And Rozier's at that point where he needs to be on a winning team.
And I will say this, like, Hornets fans, you should be mad if you're talking about the trade part of it, because Terry Rozier, if you didn't know, got traded for a protected 2027 first and Kyle Lowry, who's about to get dumped by the Hornets. But I will say this, like, obviously I don't love the trade from a basketball transactional point of view, and obviously that's what you need to do well towards. But I also don't hate giving Terry a friendly deal, a friendly trade of where he wanted to go, because also, like, hey, this guy did help us, and he was consistent. He never complained. He wasn't ever out and about, crapping the Charlotte Hornets and demanding trade requests and all this stuff. He did it the right way. He really did. And I think you should be favored in that. Now, we can get into this in a little bit, but if Gordon Hayward's like, I want out, I hope Gordon Hayward gets sent to Latvia. I do not want him. He shouldn't get sent to L.A. He shouldn't get sent to Miami. He shouldn't get sent to where he wants to go. Send him to the Washington Wizards or the Detroit Pistons. I do not. You should not give Gordon Hayward any say where he gets to go or buy him out whatsoever. It's like, hey, we're going to send you to the best deal to the worst team. We do not care.
Gordon Hayward, you are a Fort Wayne Mad Ant. Welcome to the G League.
He's not. No, he doesn't deserve that. NBA 2K10 legend. You always got sent to the Fort Wayne Mad Ants in my player.
I don't know. The Gordon piece, I agree. It shouldn't be one of those situations where, like, the Cavs bought out Kevin Love last year. It's like, we'll do you a solid. We'll buy you out.
You won him a championship. Like, we're not even asking that much. Like, hey, man, just play some games and don't be a freaking cancer.
Yeah, as a Hornets fan, ask yourself, would you have wanted us to do Nick Batum a solid? Because it's damn near the same situation. Like,
yeah,
come on. He stole $100 million from the franchise.
He did. French cheerleader.
Now, I want to dive into the actual details of the trade because from an organizational standpoint, if you're the Hornets and you're sitting at 10-31 or 10-32 after the game last night, and you're what, 12th in the Eastern Conference, 13th now, you have to show some form of direction. Because you can either be like, oh, we're going to retool around our best players and make a push for the playoffs, which clearly they're not at that point. Or you have to say, hey, let's look ourselves in the mirror. We've got some young talent, a couple of these veterans, a couple of these guys that are making a lot of money on their yearly salary. They don't really fit our mold. They don't fit our team construction right now. We got to get them gone. And as much as the Charlotte love Terry, he's a great player, our most consistent player, I do like the fact that they actually made a move to show what direction they're going in. Now, as far as the actual compensation goes, if you look at Terry Rozier and you look at Dame Lillard, clearly Lillard's a better player. But if you look at what both of them would do for Miami, they will play about the same role. As far as ball handling, shooting goes, two-man game, pick and roll, not a ton of defense. I don't think Dame's production for Miami would be that much greater than what Rozier's going to do once he acclimates there. And the fact that the Heat were willing to part with 3 or 4 draft picks, plus Hero, plus Nikola Jovic, or the pick that would be Jaquez, the fact that they were willing to part with all that for Dame Lillard, and then we don't even get a fifth of that? We don't even get a fifth of that. That is what concerns me. Because we get Lowry, who we're going to flip for 2 seconds, and then a first-round pick that's lottery protected, and if not, it'll go to the next year unprotected. But we will get it in 2027. It will be in the mid-20s because the Heat are always good. They will always be in the playoff mix for some reason, it seems like. I just feel like they could have gotten more. I feel like if you're the Hornets, you could have gotten more for Rozier, especially based on the package the Heat were willing to give up for Dame Lillard, because they're very comparable. Their numbers are comparable, albeit Terry was on a bad team. But what their role for the Heat, they will do about the same thing. Correct me if I'm wrong.
If you're the Heat, you're kind of pumped. You got a Walmart Damian Lillard on the cheap. You got him for the great value price.
It's a better fit. I dare say it's a better fit. Like Rozier has that grit, that dog in him. And I think he plays more defense than Lillard does. Lillard doesn't even care most nights.
Yeah, that's true. And in the Heat, offense is very slow too. I think that also benefits them more too, bringing in Terry, because Terry can play in that slow, methodical, one-on-one ball kind of thing, two-man game where there's not a lot, it's not a lot of fast, go. I think Terry can play at any pace, and that's the beauty of him too. He can play slow, he can play fast, he can go one-on-one, he can go get you a bucket when you need it. And he's just another guy the Heat are going to have in the clutch, and everyone's in the playoffs going to be like, why wasn't Terry Rozier in more trade talks?
Yeah, that is the underrated gem of the trade deadline, I think, was Terry Rozier. And I wasn't expecting the Hornets to get Jaime Jaquez or 4 or 5 first-round picks, nothing like that. But at least get a couple picks. At least get a young player back. At least get Jovic, even though he might not be good. At least that's a flyer on somebody that could be a rotational piece. There's nothing in this trade.
Throw Bouknight in there, too. How did Bouknight get involved in this deal?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing with the Hornets is nothing from this trade will be of use, most likely. Lowry's not going to play a game for the Hornets. And
I already bought my jersey, too.
And guess what? The draft pick we got for him, do you trust the Hornets in the draft? Do you trust the Hornets to hit on the 21st overall pick? I sure don't. I don't think there's a single asset from this Rozier trade that'll be on the Hornets roster in 5 years.
No. Yeah, and it does stink, but I think we've done too much on the Hornets. Let's move on to the Siakam trade. Siakam trade, it was 3 firsts, Bruce Brown, and someone else, I believe.
Oh, man.
Top of my head. Someone random.
I don't even remember.
Yeah, Bruce Brown and 3 firsts. Let's just call it like that. Raptors trade him to the Pacers. Siakam is now a Pacer, has been for about a week and a half now. Overall thoughts in this trade?
Oh, it was Jordan Nwora.
Yeah, Louisville.
Yeah, Jordan Nwora. I think it's the right move for the Raptors, because if you're the Raptors, you let Van Fleet walk for nothing this summer, and you didn't want to let Siakam do the same thing. You didn't, because he's one of your best players, championship guy, City loves him, but he wasn't going to re-sign there, and the Raptors aren't going to make any noise in the playoffs this year. So what do you have to gain by keeping him? You had to give him up. As far as the actual deal goes, I think they got a pretty good haul for him. Because
I think it's a good deal for the Raptors.
Yeah, I think you're ecstatic because you can rebuild around that. Bruce Brown's a good piece, which they could flip for another pick or two, because he's already drawing heavy interest in the trade market right now. I think the package they got was great. From a Pacers standpoint, I also think it was a good move. Because
really?
I do, because you're Indiana. Here's my case. You're Indiana Pacers. You're not LA. You're not Miami. You're not Chicago. You're not New York. It's like Charlotte. You have to overpay guys to come there. You have to get them in free agency, entice them, and all of a sudden you're paying Gordon Hayward $40 million a year. With this, you get him in a trade, and they had to make sure like he would re-sign long term, but you don't have to negotiate with him. You don't have to try to allure him to your team in free agency. You already have him, and you got the long-term commitment. And for the Pacers with Halliburton, that's the guy. That's a legit dude. He'll be an all-star starter this year. That is your guy, hopefully for the next 10, 15 years. You might as well go ahead and get him a running mate. Because by the time you have those 3 first-round picks, what are the odds those guys are going to be any good? Like, what's the hit rate on those first-round picks? If you're going to be decent enough, like the Pacers are going to be in the playoff talk every year, those first-round picks aren't as valuable. They're not going to be a bad team. So I don't hate it for them. I think you might as well just see what you got with the current roster, add Siakam to it. If it doesn't work, then trade some other guys.
Yeah, it just feels like you're right. If you're Indiana, it's a move you have to do. It's a move you have to make to become you're a guaranteed playoff team at this point. Like now, okay, no matter what, we know we're going to be in the playoffs with Siakam, with Albert, and Miles Turner, and those guys. But it just feels like a move that you'll never get. At best, you make a conference finals and get swept. That's what the move feels like to me.
Well, with the Siakam trade, what does it guarantee you? Because it doesn't guarantee you an extra round of the playoffs. They could get beat in the first round, and I wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I feel. It's like, yeah, the 3 first-round picks, whatever. I don't really care about the picks necessarily. It's like, which guy are you going to go after and throw those picks at and throw your assets at? I'm not the biggest Siakam guy. He's won the title. He's been there. He's done it, whatever. But it just feels like, a Hawks or a Hornets or a Pistons move where it's like, you'll get the 5 seed. Yay. You might win a series. Yay. You're going to get smoked in the second round.
My opinion on this has changed in the last few years because now I think people overvalue first-round picks. Because if the Pacers are picking in the late lottery every year or in the 20s, how valuable are those picks? Like, how sure are you that any one of those guys will be a rotational piece? So I think I'm more inclined to agree with what they did in their thought process because what if Tatum or somebody goes down one year and the Celtics falter? Or what if Giannis leaves Milwaukee and then all of a sudden the East is wide open? What if Embiid goes down with an injury? You never know when there'll be a chance to make that Atlanta Hawks Eastern Conference Finals run from 2021. And then all of a sudden you're one game from the finals. Like, you never know when that'll happen.
Let me come up with a hypothetical. Let's say you're the Pacers and you're like, all right, we're willing to part with these picks. Let's see what we can do. And let's say these guys are going to commit to being a Pacer for long term. Let's say when you trade them, they're going to be a Pacer. Would you rather do the deal for Siakam, or would you rather do, maybe Bruce Brown and a first for Miles Bridges? And I don't think you would go for that. Maybe even a first would take Miles Bridges off the Hornets' hands. I think I'd rather go the Miles Bridges route almost. Like, you do have to worry about the off the court stuff, but like you'd get them for a way cheaper price, and you can use those assets to get even more stuff. I just don't think Siakam takes you to that next level.
I think that's a fair point. And Siakam will never be a number one guy, but here he doesn't have to be. Like, Halliburton is the dude, so he just gets to slot right in, cut, play good defense.
Yeah, but you need that other guy to come in and basically be on that Halliburton level, because if you're relying on a 6'3", 6'4" guard to get you to that championship level where you want to be at. And I understand, like, the Pacers necessarily aren't making this move to say we're in the title race. They're more so saying it, we're in the playoffs. Like, we're guaranteed the playoffs. Yeah. And that's the move it makes. And you can't be mad. Small market, I guess, but I just don't see a world where this turns into, okay, like the Pacers become that championship level team then, unless Siakam just plays out of his mind. Like, even if he plays as well as he did in the Raptors series, like, that still doesn't take you to the playoffs. That doesn't take you to the finals. That doesn't take you. That's not beating Milwaukee. That's not beating Boston.
I agree, but you have to do something, because how often does a team build through the draft and really hit it? If you're not the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Warriors but they built with Curry, Clay, and Draymond, like, how often does that really happen? You build through the draft. Like, I just think you have to do something. And the angle also I want to bring up is, does this make Indiana a more attractive destination for somebody like a disgruntled star who's like, oh, Halliburton's the top 2-point guard in the league in 2 years. Maybe I want to go play here. Maybe I want to go to Indiana with him and Siakam and Miles Turner and just see what we can do. Like,
I guess, and I see, like, I'm not saying, like, I despise the move, but it doesn't get me out of bed. It doesn't get, now, if you're a Pacers fan, you're like, awesome, like, we're going to be in the playoffs again, we're competitive. If the Hornets were a 4 seed, I'm sitting here throwing a parade right now. I would be on the scores table like Patrick Beverly after winning the play-in game, like, let's go, we did it, suck it, we're the Hornets, blah, 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 we won a playoff series.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm the wrong one in this room.
The last point I want to make on this, I'll close with this, is the goal in the NBA is to win, to be competitive, and eventually, instead of trying to stockpile all these draft picks and assets and stuff for the future, eventually you have to cash in and make a run. And with a guy as generational as Halliburton, I think every single year their goal should be to be competitive, to be in the mix, because you never know if you make it to the second round and then star player on the other team goes down, or your team gets hot and hits 23s in game 7 and all of a sudden you're in a conference finals. Like, the goal with a player as generational as Tyrese Halliburton should just be to be in the mix every single year. You can't waste these years. You cannot waste these prime years, bottom of the conference, with trying to develop first-round picks and stockpile assets. So I commend them for going for it, for making a move forward and assuring they will be in the mix for the next 5 years.
Yeah,
that's my
true.
case.
Last thing I want to talk about in the NBA, Embiid dropped 70, and on the same night, Karl Anthony Towns dropped 62, but loses to the Charlotte Hornets. He loses on 2 leaky black free throws. He had 62 points, and they still couldn't beat the Hornets, and leaky black is the one making the clutch free throws to close the game out. Like, it's so funny. The reason I wanted to bring this up, though, was we talked about it before we were recording, obviously. Like, the Embiid 70 and the Cat 62 are 2 different things. They are 2 different things. One's like, okay, like, nice, like, that was that. I mean, it led to a 20-point win. Yes, you were playing. They won by like 20, right?
It was a little bit closer than that. Well, Spurs.
They took away
those double digits, yeah.
Yeah, you win double digits against the Spurs. That 70 points, truly mattered. But you're dropping 62 and you can't beat the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah.
That says a little C word, a little cancerous, if you might want to say.
I completely agree. If you look at the stats, Towns went off in the first half, 44, had a strong third quarter, and then all of a sudden, whether he was gassed, no legs, obviously he was chasing a big point total. He only had 4 points in the fourth quarter. And the Timberwolves team was up 15, I think, to start the quarter, or they were up 15 at some point in that fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden, Towns starts taking fadeaway threes and running floaters and trying to get fouled, and it's just not working. And then you blink and the Hornets are down by 4, or the Hornets take the lead. And it's like, for the Timberwolves to be that number 1 seed, they still have that level of immaturity where it's like, this is still a young team. Like, their best player is Anthony Edwards, and he's, 22? I don't even know how old he is. He's very young to be their best player. And he even said it in the postgame. It was like, once Towns got 6 or 7 or 8 points early on, we wanted to see him go for 100. Which, first of all, if a guy has 8 points in the first quarter, I'm not thinking 100 points. But second of all, that's a losing mindset. That's called playing down your opponent and not really giving a crap about the regular season. Which this game won't matter too much.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's the whole thing. Is this game really doesn't matter that much, and it's going to look good for Cat stats. But you are playing the Charlotte Hornets, and you're like, he's got 44. Like, let's make this thing happen. Like, let's go beat Will Chamberlain's record tonight. I'm bored. It was Tuesday night?
Was it Tuesday? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you're a Tuesday night at home against Charlotte. You're like, let's have some fun. Let's go get my teammate 100 points.
And I think that's fair. But you have to win the game. When there's 4 minutes left and he's still like at 58, it's not going to happen. You just got to win at that point. You got to be mature enough at that moment to make a decision and say, okay, he's not getting 100. He's not getting 80. Yep. We just need to win. We just need to make the win. And I don't think people should read too much into this. I thought Chris Finch's comments after the game were very telling, where he was like, yeah, Cat was hunting a big number, and we stopped playing the right way. He just called him out with no hesitation.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think it really matters. It's a January NBA game. It's like a July baseball game. Like, okay, I don't care. This isn't gonna matter.
I think so too. So there's no chance Cat gets traded by the deadline, right? They're too good.
No, okay. They're too good. They're too good.
I'd ask.
I did want to bring this up. We were talking about like Cat being a cancerous teammate. Who would you say in the NBA right now is the most cancerous guy?
The most?
Yes.
Oh gosh, that's tough.
Let me throw some names out there. Trae Young.
As a player or like as a teammate?
Both. I think that goes hand
he's on
in
the
hand.
team. He's on the roster. He's on the all-cancer team.
Donovan Mitchell.
No, I don't think so. I know we've been through this case and what he did in Utah, but I can't put him in the same category as Towns and Trae Young and other players like that.
Okay. I don't agree with this, but just putting it out there, LaMelo.
No, I don't agree. I don't think so.
I had to put it out there.
That's I mean, it's a fair question to ask. He can be talked about.
I would put Harden in this, but Harden's fitting well with this Clippers team. I don't think you can put him in there.
No, you can't. Not this year. He actually sacrificed with his usage and stuff, and he's actually giving a crap and trying on defense. So I can't put him in there this year.
Jokic. I'm just kidding.
Ben Simmons, even though he's not playing.
Ben Simmons, even like it's insane. Like, yeah, even though he's not playing, he's still somehow the most cancerous teammate.
Zach LaVine.
Zach LaVine's on the team.
I
Zach
think he is
LaVine's
too.
100% on the team.
When you go out with an injury and your team instantly starts playing better and rallies around your backup or your other backcourt guy and Kobe White, that's a pretty good sign.
Brandon Ingram.
I think as a player he is. Like as an actual person, I don't think he's like a locker room cancer, but just the way he plays, it just sucks the life out of everybody else. You're a Duke guy.
Yeah.
Do you agree? I mean, those mid-range
I 100%
ISOs,
agree.
post-ups that take 15 seconds off the shot clock, you're just like, all right, I guess I'll sit in the corner and be ready to shoot.
Yeah, he because the number one thing is like he does not elevate anybody around him. No one is
Right.
better because Brandon Ingram's on the team, but there are more points on the scoreboard because Brandon Ingram is on the team.
Yeah, he's a talented player by all means, but can he elevate the rest of the team as the best player?
I'm trying to think, are there any others, like, you could say Kyrie, but, like, when Kyrie's playing, I don't think he's a cancer on the court.
DeAndre Ayton?
Gosh, maybe. Somehow as a big man he is.
And he's just so irrelevant in Portland now. Did you see that comment where he was like, I'm a max guy, so I've fulfilled my role in this league. I've fulfilled my, I don't remember the word he used, but he was like satisfied.
He got his money.
It's like, really,
He's gonna
DeAndre Ayton?
He's going to be on the Jeff Teague podcast being like, man, I don't want to win a ring. I want to make money. Who else? I think that's about it.
Yeah,
Like,
and then Cat has to be on there.
Jordan Poole's not good enough to be in that category.
Or Kuzma. You can say the whole
No.
Wizards team, honestly.
Yeah, the Wizards franchise, the Hornets franchise, Wembanyama.
Shea.
Yeah, Shea. Just talk about every good player. Yeah, who would you say is the most out of those guys?
Oh, man, combination of play style and personality.
Trae Young might be it for me.
I think so. The one clip that sold me on Trae Young being the answer here
DeJounte Murray's buzzer beater?
When DeJounte Murray hit the buzzer beater, Trae Young was pissed he didn't get the ball. And he was like clapping his hands, and he was like, even when Murray was dribbling on the court, he was like, oh my God, like what's he doing? And then Murray hit the shot, and he was like kind of excited, but Murray didn't even look his way. And that tells me all you need to know. That tells me all I need to know right there. So I agree.
Yeah.
Trae Young is the answer there.
All right, anything else in the NBA?
All-Stars announced tonight. So next episode we can go over kind of what we think about that. So,
Yeah.
No?
All right, that's it in the NBA. Let's do a quick Panthers minute. Panthers announced their new head coach. The Matt Rule, Frank Reich, Chris Tabor, Steve Wilkes, all those eras are over. It's Dave Canales time in Carolina. Initial thoughts, I'll go first. Dave Canales, very handsome guy. I mean, my goodness. You see the picture and you're like, well, every Carolina mom right now, all the Luke Kuechly lovers and Christian McCaffrey moms are sitting there just, oh my gosh, he is hot. He is cute. They are going to be all in on Dave Canales. And I also think it's impossible to hate a hire that is a good-looking person and a hot-shot offensive coordinator, a younger guy. It's impossible to hate that. And that's what everybody wants. They're like, oh, I want the hot-shot, good-looking, young offensive coordinator. You want the Sean McVays. You're like, they're going to be good. But if, let's say someone with a better pedigree comes in, they kind of look more like me. They're, you're a little bigger guy, they're coming in with the stained T-shirt on. They're like, he's not cutting it for me. I don't know, I don't see it. But you see Dave Canales, you're like, whew, you got the job, buddy.
It's hard to hate on somebody like Dave Canales. It's so much easier to be like, Matt Rule? God, this guy sucks. I hate this guy as a coach. But it's like Dave Canales, we'll cut you some slack. You're young and fit. You're a hotshot OC. It's like the people that are, you hire from the Shanahan tree. It's like, oh, yes, like this is what we want. Like hotshot new offense. I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, if you're a dude listening to this podcast, show your girlfriend, your wife, or even your mom. Say, oh, how do you like the Panthers head coach? They're going to love him. They're going to love him. Trust me. I know. I already tested the theory out. It's rock solid. Every single wife, girlfriend, mom is going to be like, I'll tell you what, I love the Panthers. They're fantastic.
Like that's a guy that I want just leading the guys. That's a guy I wouldn't mind watching every Sunday on TV.
Yeah, he could get it.
You know how Taylor Swift fans feel whenever there's a Taylor Swift cutaway for the Chiefs? That's how all these Carolina Panthers moms are going to be whenever they show Canales on the sidelines. They're going to be like, oh my God, did you see what he's wearing today?
Yes.
That tight athletic shirt.
Yeah, they're going to show him they do the opening segment and warm-ups before the game. You're watching the pregame. He comes out and he's tossing the football with some of the players with a sleeveless shirt on, and all the
wind's
moms
blowing.
Are like, oh my gosh, he is so hot. And there's ketchup stained keep pounding shirt. The actual hire and all of it, whatever. I don't know. You knew it was going to happen. I got word that it was supposed to happen. Inside sources confirmed. I texted you guys. I said, I texted you. I said, hey, it's going to be him or Avero. It looks like it's going to be him because him and Dan are guys. That's what I was told, and that's what it is. Look, I don't. What are you going to do if you're a Panthers fan? You're going to sit here and hate on it? You're going to sit here and be like, we could have done so much better. We're the least attractive job in the league. We don't have our first-round pick. We hired our GM internally. You don't know about this guy. He made Geno and Baker millions and millions of dollars. I think Dave Canales could be a great coach in Carolina. I'm not going to sit here and hate on it immediately. You can look at the stats and be like, oh, the Bucs weren't great in a lot of these areas offensively. I don't really care. Let's bring him into Carolina. Clean slate. He's got a lot of time. They're not going to tell him you need to make the playoffs in your first year. Just make Bryce look good. The defense needs to stay as well as they are. Get some weapons in there. Let's be a fun team. That's all I'm asking as a Panthers fan. Let's be a fun team to watch on TV next season.
Yeah, I want to be competitive just from a fan standpoint. And my expectations right now are non-existent. Because last year with Frank Reich and this whole new staff, we got all excited. We talked ourselves into it. We were like, all-star coaching staff, number one pick quarterback. Like, we are winning the division this year. I'm not going to make that same mistake this year. I'm going to temper my expectations. I'm going to lower them. I'm not going to expect much. I'm going to say, hey, I want to be competitive. I want Bryce to improve as a quarterback, which Canales does have a history of doing with guys like Geno Smith and Baker. And do I think that Mike Vrabel would have brought more immediate success to the franchise? Yes. But I think Canales is better for Bryce Young as a quarterback. I think in 3 years, if Bryce Young's a legitimate starting quarterback and there's no more questions about him being a bust or not being the guy, then it's a win. I think that is the number one priority. And yeah, him and Dan Morgan are guys. I get it. But if this works out to where Bryce Young becomes a better quarterback and is the Panthers' legitimate starter with no questions around him in 2 or 3 years, then it's a win. I think that's all that matters right now.
I agree 100%. I think all that matters is making Bryce Young the guy, developing Bryce Young, getting good weapons in there, revolving the scheme around Bryce Young. Get rid of the toxic bull crap of someone wanted Stroud, someone wanted Bryce Young. Just a complete clean slate. That's all. That's what the Panthers need. And like I said, I'm not. We go into next year. We win 5 games. Cool. I don't care. That's fine. As long as we look competitive in those games, the offense is clicking at times. The offense looks good because it was a chore to watch Panthers games. I mean, they were the worst team in the league for a reason. It was awful. So, just making Bryce Young look good. Making sure that defense looks rock solid like it did last season. Let's just go have fun and win, and just have fun in football games. We don't even have to win a bunch of football games. Let's go have fun and just not be the worst team in the league and not make Bryce Young not a bust. I don't want him to be a bust.
Right.
And Panthers fans who are also mad at this, they're like, we should have gotten Belichick or Vrabel or whatever. This is the least attractive job. Yeah, it's the least attractive job in the team. Also, those guys are going to want more say in ownership, and whether that's right or wrong remains to be seen with Tepper and stuff. But this guy seems to be willing to work with Tepper and Dan Morgan. Obviously, with Dan Morgan, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to be upset about it. I don't think Panthers fans should be either.
Yeah, I just want to see some positive franchise direction next year. Just something to show that the Panthers are moving in the right direction. And
bring Mike Evans.
Dave,
bring Mike Evans.
That was you beat me to it. I was gonna say, Dave, if you want to bring Mike Evans, slam the checkbook on the table. Shout out our guy Luke Gray on Twitter for bringing that to my attention. Just bring Mike Evans over. Open the checkbook, Tepper.
But Canales, the new head coach of the Panthers. Hopefully we don't have to do this next year.
I know. Yeah, next year the A block is Panthers searching for a new head coach for the third straight year.
Yeah, hopefully we're not doing this next year and the Dan Snyder comparisons come out. Hopefully we're a good team next year.
Dave Canales, just starts talking to David Tepper's wife, and all of a sudden he's gone after 5 games.
Oh, Nicole Tepper would. That would be bad. That would be bad. They have a restraining order, and I was gonna
say
that's
our best scout. That's our best scout. Chill.
I was gonna make a Udoka joke, but I'll restrain. I'll restrain.
Very mature of you, Carter. Thank you. Very mature.
All right. But yeah, anything else on Canales being the Panthers coach?
Nah, just I'm not expecting a quick turnaround. I just want something to show the franchise is going in the right direction. Just some hope. As a fan base, just a little taste, a little dabble of hope, I would say.
Yep, 100% agree. All right, that's it from us. Make sure to subscribe, rate, review wherever you're listening, and download SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, get your concert, sports tickets. I'm going to Jazz Hornets next month. Where am I going to get my tickets, Connor? I'm going to SeatGeek. What code am I going to use?
I think I know what code you're going to use. It's CarterCast.
I'm going to use CarterCast, KarterCast, for $20 off your first purchase on SeatGeek. Go download that today. Use the promo code CarterCast right now. That's it from us. Follow us on Twitter at Connor_Sparrow, at CarterBA, at CarterCast on all social media. Subscribe to the YouTube. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening, and follow on Twitter at CarterCast like I mentioned before. And we'll be back. College Basketball Podcast is going to be out right when you're hearing this, so you can just move right into that one. College Basketball Podcast on there. And then next week we'll be back. We'll be talking full NFL. We'll talk about the coaching carousel. We'll talk about the Titans hire. We'll briefly cover the Panthers hire. Then we'll do brief recap, and then we'll be off. We're not going to do next week. There's no show, no NFL show next Wednesday. We're going to be back the following week for a big Super Bowl props show. Very excited about that. Stay tuned for that. Subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.